Fukumin D opens by showing the atmosphere in 2019 at Tokan High School, Japan. A new teacher named Daichi is the homeroom teacher in one of the classes. Daichi is very enthusiastic when introducing himself and explains that he became a teacher because he was inspired by a manga called Rookies. Daichi had been active in athletics clubs until university and even competed nationally. Although Daichi is a new teacher at Tokan High School, he is welcomed by his students. Daichi seems happy to be close to his students and likes to get involved in their personal affairs. One of the problems he faced was from a student named Hashimoto. Hashimoto likes someone but feels burdened because she is always thinking and wondering if the person she likes don't like her too. Daichi tried to give wise advice to Hashimoto to express her feelings so that she could be relieved. Daichi also encouraged Hashimoto regardless of the outcome. From there, Hashimoto became happy and thanked Daichi for inspiring her. Then Hashimoto boldly expressed her feelings to the student she liked, a young man named Sayama. Hashimoto was rejected because Sayama already had a girlfriend. Although her face looked happy, her heart could not lie, and she still felt disappointed at the rejection. As a teacher, Daichi said that even when we are sad, we should still be happy because it will make us feel better. The more they understand the disappointment of failure, the happier they will be when they achieve something. The days went on as usual. However, everything changes when Sayama's girlfriend gets angry at Hashimoto. Sayama's girlfriend thought that Hashimoto wanted to take Sayama away from her. Therefore, Sayama's girlfriend wanted Hashimoto to regret it. The next day, Hashimoto was slandered for stealing things in class. All the students began to avoid her. Sayama's girlfriend's gang made slander sound like Hashimoto had stolen her wallet. This made Hashimoto even worse because of the bullying. One of Hashimoto's classmates tries to stop them and reports the incident to Daichi. When Daichi got wind of the news, he immediately admonished the bullies not to do it again. Usually calm and gentle, Daichi turned angry after learning about their actions. Sayama's girlfriend's gang put on a sorry face and acted as if they didn't want to do it again, but in reality, they were getting worse. They also bullied Yamada because they knew she had reported them to Daichi. They took a photo of Yamada's underwear and threatened to spread the photo if she didn't comply with their wishes. After school, they bullied Hashimoto by pouring dirty water on her head and body. They also made Yamada read out a confession letter about Hashimoto, in which it was written that Hashimoto was a smart student and could get everything. Even people's girlfriends wanted her to dominate. From that confession, Hashimoto was considered to have graduated from the cruel human race. Hashimoto felt hurt and couldn't take it anymore. Therefore, Hashimoto decided to end her life, and Yamada reported this problem to Daichi. Although Daichi had given wise advice, he was unable to save Hashimoto. In the end, Daichi was considered the culprit who caused Hashimoto to commit suicide. Daichi was considered to be interfering in Hashimoto's life. Even Sayama's girlfriend also slandered Daichi as Hashimoto's killer. The rumors spread throughout the school, even to Hashimoto's parents. When Daichi went to mourn, he was chased away by Hashimoto's parents, who blamed him for their daughter's death. Daichi did not deny the accusation and even apologized to Hashimoto's parents. He realized this incident would not have happened had he not advised Hashimoto to express his feelings back then. 3 years passed since the incident. Daichi was fired and transferred to Tazen High School. The principal, Baba, warned Daichi not to interfere too much in the personal affairs of his students. Baba also explained that Tozen High School had students with learning disabilities, as many students came from low-income families and were often unable to attend class due to their families' hardships. The principal insists that these problems are not the teacher's responsibility, so Daichi does not need to interfere. Daichi was not excited about teaching at the school because the students were not excited either. One day, Daichi collided with a student named Chikara. Chikara was amazed by Daichi's body shape and thought of him as a wrestler. When in class, many students were absent, and they didn't care about Daichi's presence. One of the students says they will still pass even if they are absent as long as they take the exam. The story then moves to one of the fights between Hao and another wrestler. It turns out that Hao was Sayama from Tokan High School 3 years ago. Now, How is a professional wrestler who is undefeated and has many fans. How is a wrestler sponsored by the BDT Club, which Chikara's parents own. Chikara then recommended to look for young talents who could become professional wrestlers. Chikara set up a contest, challenging anyone to lift a 150 kilograms wrestler, and if they succeeded, they would get 10 million yen. Chikara was sure no one would be able to do it. He just wanted to see the talents of the people who signed up. Every day, Daichi teaches without enthusiasm and looks lethargic. This was different from the school he wanted to go to. There were few students, and no one listened to him when he taught, which made him desperate. Therefore, Daichi decided to approach his students one by one to tell them to come to school. The first student that Daichi visited was Muto. Muto lived in a small house with his brother and grandfather. Muto was busy caring for his sick brother and grandfather daily, so there was no time to go to school. Although Daichi tries to give his notes, Muto doesn't need them as he is confident that the school will ensure that he graduates. Muto says that he enjoyed his youth like that. It turns out that Muto is constantly beaten up, and his father demands his money, but Muto never fights back and allows it. Daichi advises the young man to change the situation if he tries. Muto doesn't believe these words and tells Daichi to enter the weightlifting contest organized by Chikara. With much effort, Muto wants Daichi to change the situation. Buying 150 kilograms weights should be impossible for an ordinary person. Muto was surprised that Daichi accepted the challenge. As the competition progressed, it seemed no one could do it until Daichi's turn came. If Daichi had managed to lift the weight for 3 minutes, he would have received 1 million yen, which would have been given to Muto. In the beginning, Daichi didn't manage to lift the weight at all. However, he tried proving to Muto that hard work can make a difference. Finally, Daichi managed to lift the weight, leaving everyone surprised. Unfortunately, How threw a bottle cap at Daichi's feet, causing him to fall and fail with only a few seconds left. Muto is increasingly convinced that Daichi's words need to be. However, Chikara and his parents were interested in recruiting Daichi as a professional wrestler in their club. Daichi refuses the offer because he cannot have a side job as a teacher, let alone become a professional wrestler. At school, Daichi is assigned by the principal to investigate a student named Kazu Okada. Rumors were say that Okada was pregnant and the baby's birth was imminent. The principal asks Daichi to confirm the rumor's truth and find out who the father of Okada's baby is. The principal also asked Daichi to make Okada voluntarily quit school if she wanted to take care of the baby, as Okada's pregnancy would be bad for the reputation of the school and the other students. That day, as usual, no one cared about Daichi's presence in class. All the students were busy with their own business. Daichi sees Okada looking at an empty desk, confirmed to be Okada's boyfriend's desk. After school, Okada went to see Kanta, her boyfriend who had impregnated her. However, Kanta stays away and doesn't want to take responsibility for Okada's pregnancy. Every day, Okada tries to write lesson notes for Kanta and asks him to go to school, but Kanta always refuses with the excuse of being busy. Daichi tries to talk alone with Okada about the rumors. Okada tells him she is 7 months pregnant and intends to give birth and care for the baby. Okada also knows about the principal's request for her to leave school if she takes care of the baby voluntarily. Still, Okada insists that she continue attending school even after giving birth. Okada's parents don't know about her pregnancy yet because Okada is afraid of being told to abort the baby. At first, Okada thought the principal had asked Daichi to force her to quit school. However, Daichi instead tried to encourage Okada about her pregnancy and asked her to tell her parents immediately. Daichi even congratulated Okada on her pregnancy. Okada feels honored because no one has congratulated her so far. Even so, Okada feels sad because Kanta has changed since she became pregnant. Kanta was a comforting figure in the past, but now he doesn't care about Okada's feelings. Meanwhile, Muto meets Akira, a student from their class who rarely goes to school because of her busy side job. Muto tells her about the new teacher at their school, Daichi, who is very strange. Akira tells him that she now works at a bar. Muto is shocked because a bar shouldn't employ high school kids, and it's very dangerous. However, Akira isn't worried because she has been introduced to a man who accepts high school kids and is guaranteed safety. The man would send Akira to a club bar on two conditions. Firstly, the pay was 50 to 50% of the earnings, and secondly, if there was a police raid for hiring high school kids, Akira was asked to keep her mouth shut. Akira was quite worried about the police, but she was assured that they rarely came to their place. The second condition was just a precaution. Akira did it anyway because she needed the money to keep her mom's shop afloat. Akira didn't tell her mom about her side job. Her mother was only surprised and happy that Akira could make that much money. Daichi is still curious about the father of Okada's child. He feels confused and sad, but learns more about Okada's situation. He asks Muto because the young man is starting to show a little sympathy towards Daichi. Muto tells Daichi that the father of Okada's child is Kanta. Later that evening, Daichi goes straight to Kanta and tells him to come to school to make Okada happy. However, Kanta takes offense and says he doesn't want the baby to be born. The next day, a news reporter visits Daichi for information and asks Daichi directly about Hashimoto's death. The reporter suspects that Daichi is the cause of the death because he interfered much in Hashimoto's personal affairs. This is when Okada passes by and happens to overhear the conversation, so she learns about Daichi's past. Fortunately, the principal comes and sends the reporter away. In class, Kanta finally enters school. At first, Okada is happy that Kanta is present, but it turns out that Kanta's arrival only reveals that he does not want the baby to be born. Kanta feels unprepared to be a father and is embarrassed if everyone knows he is Okada's child's father. Without even thinking, Kanta breaks up with Okada on the spot. He also stated that he could finally reveal all that thanks to Daichi. Because of this problem, Okada is unfortunate and thinks that Daichi wants to see her sad to get out of school. At this moment, Daichi feels guilty for his actions, the atmosphere worsens again, and Okada decides to leave school that day. After the incident, Okada is absent from school for several days. Daichi meets with Muto and tells him what happened. Muto apologizes for telling Daichi about the father of Okada's child. Muto believes Daichi because he hopes Daichi can help Okada become happier. Meanwhile, Chikara and his parents offer Daichi to become a professional wrestler with a secret identity. Daichi can wear a mask so that no one recognizes him. Chikara gets this idea because Tiger Mask, a legendary wrestler, inspires him and names Daichi Fukumen D or Max D. However, Daichi still refuses because there are still many problems he has to face at school. Hao suddenly says that he disagrees with the idea and thinks Daichi has a negative aura that can rub off on people around him, so Daichi doesn't deserve to be a wrestler. Daichi doesn't defend himself and agrees with Hao's mockery, but he still intends to help others who are in trouble and wants to change their situation. Eventually, the insults made Daichi want to prove that things could be changed. He accepts an offer to become a professional wrestler, but Hao wants to test him first with a short fight. If Daichi lost, he would have to forget his dream of becoming a wrestler. If Daichi wins, he will be accepted as a professional wrestler. Chikara also calls Muto to come and see Daichi fight. Muto uses this opportunity to invite Okada to watch the fight. Long story short, the fight begins. Daichi was only an amateur, so that he couldn't fight against Hao much, but he didn't give up and kept getting up, holding on for 3 minutes to prove that hard work can turn things around. Everyone told Daichi to give up, as he was only getting hit so hard, but Daichi wouldn't. Finally, the 3 minutes were up, and Daichi managed to withstand Hao's attacks and was declared the winner. Everyone was in amaze of Daichi's determination, including Okada. Okada's unyielding spirit inspired the girl so much that she was determined to fight for her baby. After that incident, a mysterious fighter with a mask covering his face is born. The story continues by showing the activities of Akira, now an entertainer, at a bar. The patrons are very happy with Akira, and the bar owner is also satisfied because Akira is very popular, so the bar earns more money. Meanwhile, Daichi continues his photo shoot for his first fight debut. Chikara and his mother were still thinking of a suitable style for Daichi to be remembered by people. Daichi will be trained directly by Chikara's mother, who turned out to be a famous fighter in the past. Daichi is still thinking about his identity, which might be revealed. Chikara's mother, Mrs. Maeda, has just realized that Daichi is teaching at the school headed by Principal Baba. Therefore, Mrs. Maeda plans to meet Baba and ask him to allow Daichi to become a professional wrestler. As it turned out, Baba had known Mrs. Maeda for a long time. Mrs. Maeda asked Baba to enable Daichi to become a wrestler, but Baba refused because it was against school rules. So Mrs. Maeda threatened to expose Baba's past, that Chikara was Baba's biological child and had been cared for by Mrs. Maeda alone, because Baba would not take responsibility, not even providing a small allowance. They had kept this a secret from Baba's principal wife. Finally, Baba had no choice but to allow Daichi to become a fighter, on the condition that Daichi not divulge this to anyone. If it leaked out, Daichi would be fired. Elsewhere, Okada ventured to be honest with her parents about her pregnancy. At first, her parents tell her to abort because Kanta does not agree to take care of the child. However, Okada is confident that Kanta will come to his senses one day. Okada returns to school and tells Daichi that her parents allowed her to give birth and congratulates her. Daichi then goes to see Akira. Daichi learns the address of the bar where Akira works from Okada. Daichi introduces himself as Akira's new homeroom teacher and tells her to return to school. However, Akira refuses because she claims to be busy working to help her mother's income without her mother knowing about Akira's real job. Meanwhile, the police have learned of several bars that employ minors. That's why they started collecting evidence from those places. The police intend to take firm steps to resolve this case. Muto also began to worry because Akira was still working at the bar. Muto asked her to stop because he saw the news about criminals sending high school girls to these bars. Muto is worried that Akira is one of the girls being sold. For fear of being caught by the police, Akira decides to quit the place. However, Masao, who was involved in the business, looked up Akira's address and went to her mother's shop. Masao learns that Akira's mother is unaware of Akira's side job and threatens to continue visiting the cafe if Akira quits. Elsewhere, Saruda and Yetsu, two young men who work for Masao, are collecting money from people's homes. That day, Yetsu decided to quit the illegal job, which shocked Saruda. Afterward, Saruda reported to Masao that Yetsu had stopped. Still, Saruda said he was happy and grateful to work for Masao because he could earn a lot of money. After Saruda left, Masao and some of his men immediately beat up Yetsu, who was tied behind a chair. This was the result Yetsu got for daring to stop working for Masao. Elsewhere, Daichi is working hard on his training because his first fight is coming up in a day. He was scared after seeing an opponent who provoked him. To prove that he could, Daichi trained hard. Chikara and his mother were amazed by Daichi's agile physique. Then Daichi was asked to lift heavy weights that could usually only be lifted by Hao at the club. It turned out that Daichi could do it quickly. Daichi used to help his parents move things, so he has strong muscles. Daichi was also required to master some wrestling skills. Chikara's mother taught him an aerial kick called the head drop kick. Another move was the fridge suplex, which involved lifting and slamming an opponent. Daichi invited Muto to come to his fighting debut. Daichi said that if Muto came, he would give it his all. Muto agreed to go and invited Okada to watch the fight. Daichi also said that he had met with Akira, and this might be an opportunity for Muto to help Akira. Since Muto already trusts Daichi, he tells him his concerns about Akira working at a bar. That night, Akira gets a customer who turns out to be Daichi. Daichi hired Akira to remind her to quit the job because he was worried that the police would come to arrest her. Then, they go to a small room so no one hears their conversation. Suddenly, the police came to clean up the bar. Everyone was arrested, including the high school kids who were employed. Fortunately, Daichi and Akira were in a secluded room so Akira could escape the arrest. Once again, Daichi tells Akira to stop working at the bar. He says that if Akira's mother finds out about it, she will be even more upset. Daichi also offered to solve Akira's problem together. Akira then told Muto and Okada about the incident. They think Daichi is very strange, but they admire him because, thanks to Daichi, they are starting to regain their confidence. Muto also tells Akira that Daichi is a wrestler, but the school keeps his identity a secret. Muto invites Akira to watch Daichi's matches because watching Daichi somehow makes them feel happier. News of the bar raid that night reaches the school. Principal Baba hears that Akira from Daichi's class is one of the workers there. However, Daichi assures him that Akira does not work there. The principal wants to talk to Daichi alone about his first fight tonight. The principal encourages Daichi to give it his all and reminds him of the previous condition, that he will be fired if Daichi's identity is revealed. As Akira is about to watch Daichi's match, she suddenly gets a call from Masao. The man wants to meet with Akira then, so in the end, only Muto and Okada watch the match. Masao offers Akira a new job, taking money from someone's house. Akira has no choice but to accept the offer, as she will be paid 50,000 yen. Akira starts working as directed and meets her co-worker this time. It turns out that Akira's co-worker is Tsuruda, her classmate. They went through their first task of taking money from an old lady, and Akira just observed how Tsuruda worked. That night, Daichi was very nervous because it was his debut. However, he was reassured that it wasn't just new wrestlers who felt nervous, it was also old wrestlers. With confidence, Daichi finally appeared as a newcomer with the nickname Fukumin D. He always brought out his fantastic kicking moves. Still, opponents began to read his fighting tactics easily due to overuse. Eventually, the tide turned and Daichi was put through the ringer. His opponent tried to expose Daichi's identity, but Daichi fought back. Finally, he unleashed his suplex that won him in his debut. Fukumindi instantly gained many fans, becoming the number 2 pillar after Hao. Okada and Muto congratulated Daichi. Muto admitted that he had never felt such happiness before knowing Daichi. From the victory, Hao praised Daichi's debut a little. The club's owner, Takada, realized that Hao's insults to Daichi were meant to encourage Daichi to become a wrestler. However, Hao was evasive and recalled their past. As it turns out, Takada used to be a wrestler. However, everything changes when a young Hao accidentally gets into the ring, and Takada protects him when an opponent attacks him. The attack hit Takada's spine, leaving him paralyzed for life. That made Hao determined to become the number 1 wrestler. Meanwhile, Akira realizes that her job is part of a phone scam, where Masao's group pretends to be relatives asking for money over the phone. When Tsuruda learns of this, he is shocked that he has been working as a criminal. Akira tells Tsuruda to stop working with Masao, but Tsuruda is sure that Masao will keep them from stopping so quickly, so Tsuruda is increasingly indecisive. On the one hand, he needs money, but on the other hand, his work is a crime. Tsuruda told Daichi how he started working with Masao. At the time, Tsuruda wanted a limited edition of Ketch shoes to add to his collection. However, he realized he couldn't afford it, especially with his family's constant fighting over debt after his father's factory went bankrupt. In his desperate situation, his cousin offered his a high-paying second job. Due to his circumstances and desire, Tsuruda accepted the offer. Then he was introduced to Masao to get the job. From there, Tsuruda became a co-worker of Yetsu, who had tried to quit several times but could not. They should have explained the job in detail. Yetsu only said that they took money from people who were in trouble. On his first day of work, Tsuruda got hefty salary, and he was happy that the job didn't require much time. In addition, he also got his dream Ketch shoes from Masao. From then on, Tsuruda felt grateful to be working with Masao. At school, Principal Baba is proud of Daichi's performance at the match. Unexpectedly, it turns out that Baba also watched Daichi's match by wearing a mask so that no one would recognize him. At this moment, Daichi is tasked with investigating a student suspected of being involved in fraud, namely Tsuruda. Previously, Daichi had been to Tsuruda's house, but no one ever opened the door. They thought Tsuruda's family was afraid to open the door because they feared debt collectors. The principal was worried that if Tsuruda was caught, it could damage the school's reputation. However, they did not care if Tsuruda was caught after leaving the school. Therefore, the principal asked Daichi to investigate without acting rashly and not to interfere too profoundly. There was panic when Keijin noticed a bruise on the back of Daichi's neck. However, Keijin assumed that it was from having sex with a woman, even though it was because it was too hard when practicing. After school, Daichi went to see Saruda at his house. At first, Saruda was surprised that a teacher was coming, especially since they didn't know each other. Still, eventually, Saruda told him about the condition of his family, who fell into poverty after his father's factory went bankrupt. That's why he had to work on the side. However, Saruda denied that he was involved in fraud. After Daichi leaves, he reports his arrival to Akira and explains that he is investigating their work. Daichi is getting busier with 3 consecutive matches scheduled and a lot of media wanting to cover him. Muto and Okada are excited about the match. Daichi's consecutive victories have made his name shine even brighter. Therefore, they want to create a signature style so that he can become the mascot of Fukumen-D. Takada also warns Daichi that many wrestlers are dim because they fall into the wrong society, often involved in street fights, so they cannot be called professional wrestlers. Muto and Okada are now happier after Daichi's appearance. Therefore, Okada wants to invite Kanta to watch Daichi's next match, hoping that Kanta can change as Okada and Muto have. Meanwhile, Saruda gets a call from Masao asking to meet, but Saruda says he is busy. Masao baits his by saying he will give him Yetsu's new catch shoes. Finally, Saruda came to the place. However, who would have thought Masao was already waiting for Saruda at that place, and Saruda had to accept the consequences, and he was beaten and threatened. Masao said firmly that they would not be able to get out of the group. If they tried to leave, they would be reported to the police, and their lives would be ruined. At first, they feel resigned to their depressed state under Masao's threats, but Saruda tries to get Akira to report the matter and ask their guardian, Daichi, for help. On the other hand, Daichi gets excited to train in preparation for his next fight after learning that Okada has invited Kanta to watch his fight later. However, Daichi suddenly receives a call from Akira about the fraud problem they're facing and that they can't get out of the job. Daichi immediately rushes to meet them, even though he is supposed to be fighting that day. To solve his students' problems, Daichi met with Masao at his headquarters. Daichi asked Masao to let his students go because the fraud was wrong. Masao agreed that Daichi would accept the challenge of fighting with him. It turned out that Masao was a martial arts expert. In this fight, if Daichi managed to survive for 3 minutes, Masao would release Akira and Saruda. Of course, Daichi accepted the challenge. Meanwhile, in the arena, Chikara and his mother wait for the arrival of Daichi, who suddenly disappears. The fight before Daichi has already started, and with only a few more turns, Daichi will fight. In his battle with Masao, Daichi doesn't fight at all because he remembers Takada's message. Unexpectedly, Masao was kind enough not to attack Daichi's face because he knew he was a teacher. However, Daichi was hit hard. He could only endure without putting up a fight. Even Daichi's ribs were broken. However, to save his students, Daichi endured terrible pain and endured until time ran out. When Masao finally ran out of patience, he punched Daichi. However, time ran out and Daichi won the fight. Masao did not keep his promise to release Saruda and Akira. After the battle, Masao revealed that his younger brother also attends Tozen High School and he is Muto. Mrs. Maeda wants to cancel the Fukumen-D match at the arena because Daichi hasn't shown up. However, Daichi finally shows up with bruises and broken ribs. Daichi says that he had an accident on the road. Chikara's mother doesn't believe him and cancels the match due to Daichi's injury. However, Takada allowed Daichi to compete. In the end, the match is made, and it's now Fukumen-D against Yuki Kamizo. Kanta is also watching this match because of Okada's request. Daichi wants to prove himself and satisfy his students and the audience. However, with such conditions, Daichi could not perform optimally. Daichi fought aggressively to finish quickly, but Yuki was a challenging opponent to beat. Yuki controlled the course of the match well, and Kanta felt very disappointed that Okada's Fukumen-D had performed so poorly. Mrs. Maeda tries to stop the match, but Takada forbids it because they must fight to the end as professionals. Yuki tried to remove the mask from Fukumen-D forcefully, but worst of all, Fukumen-D was defeated with his signature move. The crowd was disappointed, but Yuki was still not satisfied with his victory and tried to remove Fukumen-D's mask. Fortunately, Hao saved him and took the man away. As Daichi walks into the break room, Mrs. Maeda expresses her disappointment to Daichi. She says she doesn't want to see anyone in her club go through what Takada went through, leaving him disabled. She also regretted Daichi's unprofessional behavior, disappointing many spectators who had spent money watching him. As a result, Daichi was fired from the club, and Fukumindi would disappear. Now, Daichi must undergo treatment at the hospital for the fatal injuries he received. The principal visited Daichi in the hospital and said that he would be disabled for a week. The principal also reminded Daichi not to get involved in student affairs and told him about his past as an ordinary teacher before being transferred to his current school. Principal Baba once taught at a school full of delinquents. Among all the students, one was the most naughty, and his name was Hiroshi. Hiroshi became a delinquent and joined a delinquent club because of his family situation. The school wanted Hiroshi out, but it was challenging. Therefore, Baba wanted Hiroshi to change rather than be expelled. Once, Hiroshi fought with another high school and beat them up by himself. The parents of the students who were beaten up did not accept it and reported Hiroshi to the police. Hiroshi was arrested until Baba pleaded with the parents to drop the charges and Baba would be in charge. After all the chaos, Baba went to the school gangster club Hiroshi had joined. Baba asked them to allow Hiroshi to leave the gang. However, they beat Baba up. However, Hiroshi felt his heart touched and eventually changed from that incident. Baba managed to change his students, and Hiroshi left school and worked quietly in a factory. Unfortunately, on the job, Hiroshi got into an argument with his coworker, which ended in the man's murder. Baba felt shocked and guilty, but reported Hiroshi to the police anyway. Baba felt sorry for getting Hiroshi out of jail at that time because otherwise the murder wouldn't have happened. Then Baba reassured Daichi that one cannot change and that there was no need to meddle in other people's affairs to change things because it would be futile. On the other hand, Masao again contacted Tsuruda and Akira. Daichi's sacrifice was in vain because Masao did not keep his promise. They have no choice but to tell Muto and Okada about the incident. Akira also revealed that the two causes of Daichi's injury were the same. They said Masao, Muto's older brother, was the criminal who hired them. When Muto finds out about this, he is shocked that the brother who left home all this time turns out to be a criminal. Muto wanted to meet her brother to negotiate, so Masao would not bother his friends. During the meeting, Muto argued with Masao. Muto describes the condition of his house, then describes the condition of her grandfather and his little brother, even though his brothers doesn't remember Masao anymore. However, Masao does not care about their family affairs, and he just wants his grandfather to die soon. Muto begged Masao not to bother his friends, even if he is willing to prostrate himself, but Masao did not grant the request. Masao offers that if he wants Akira and Tsuruda to be free, Muto must be willing to replace both jobs. Because he felt there was no other choice, Muto accepted the offer for the sake of his friends. Daichi has not fully recovered, but he returns to the club and asks to be accepted back as Fukumindi. However, Mrs. Maeda does not care and rejects him. Chikara advises Daichi to keep training and thank the ring for giving him strength. Daichi cleaned the ring and tools daily. Even his club friends helped Daichi train. Even Yuki was willing to train Daichi. One night, their training was stopped by Mrs. Maeda because of the rule against training until midnight. However, Chikara asked his mother to reinstate Daichi as Fukumindi. The next day, Tsuruda and Akira follow Muto, who does the first job to collect money. However, Muto doesn't. Instead, the young man buys a knife at the supermarket. When they find out, they immediately tell Daichi. Muto has another plan, which is to kill his older brother. However, his plan fails because his brother is more experienced in fighting. Fortunately, Daichi arrived in time to help Muto. Daichi held them all back and told Muto to run away. Finally, Daichi had to face them all alone. But suddenly, Mrs. Maeda arrived with all the wrestlers from the BBT club. Masao and his gang were scared, so they ran away. Mrs. Maeda learned about this from Chikara, so she came to get Daichi and accepted him back into Fukumindi. After this incident, the students were very grateful to Daichi for saving them. Akira and Tsuruta decided to turn themselves into the police for their actions. Their hearts were touched after seeing Daichi's struggle, who risked his life to protect his students. Daichi disagrees with the decision because it could result in Akira and Tsuruta being expelled from school for the crime. They would also face the consequences of finding it difficult to get a job in the future, but they were ready to accept all the risks. After returning to the club, Daichi was immediately scheduled to compete. However, it was not a singles match this time, but a 2-on-2. Daichi would pair up with Hao at Hao's request. Takada advised Daichi not to overload Hao in the game. While going to practice, Daichi received another call from Muto. Muto informed him that Tsuruta had discussed his problem with his parents, and Akira would do the same to her mother. Daichi immediately went running to meet Akira because he wanted to accompany Akira in explaining the truth to her mother. Akira tells her everything, from the job at the club to being the money taker from the scam. Akira's mother was shocked and felt that she had failed to educate her daughter because Akira had to do this. Akira also expressed her intention to turn herself into the police to take responsibility for her actions. Tsuruta went to school the next day as usual, but he enjoyed his favorite breakfast before leaving. This moment was missed because Tsuruta had decided to surrender to the police. Tsuruta said goodbye to his parents, saying he didn't want to see them fight anymore. It was a special day, as all the students came to school, including Kanta, whom Muto forced. They all spent the day happily, but Daichi felt weak because he knew this was Tsuruta and Akira's last day at school. On the other hand, Daichi was also touched to see the closeness of his students on their last day. Then Daichi told the principal everything and apologized for hiding their problems. The humble teacher asked the principal not to expel Akira and Tsuruta, but the principal couldn't do anything because the rules must be followed. The principal advises Daichi that even if Akira and Tsuruta are expelled, Daichi can still be their teacher outside of school. Principal Baba asked Daichi to continue guiding them to a successful path. At the end of school hours, Akira and Tsuruta speak to all the students about what they have done. At first, everyone is indifferent until Muto gets angry and screams for their attention. Akira and Tsuruta reminded their friends not to fall into the same hole and regret it later. Then they said goodbye because that day was their last day at school, and after school, they were picked up by the police. All the students laughed and mocked them, saying that Akira and Tsuruta had no future. Muto defends them and forbids the other students from taking pictures of the incident. As they are taken away by the police car, Daichi chases after the car and asks them to keep their spirits up. After it's all over, Okada invites Kanta back to watch Daichi's next match. Okada believes that this time, Daichi will show his true strength. Kanta also asks Okada why they've all changed. Okada explains that it's all thanks to their teacher, Daichi. The police interrogate Tsuruta and Akira, and the good news is that they have been released and returned to their parents. They were only given a first reprimand and received leniency for having the courage to turn themselves in. After all, they had no idea about their illegal work. Masao was just using them. Finally, the day of the match arrived. Muto and Okada will watch it and will who Okada invited. Tsuruta and Akira are also there. They were very happy that Tsuruta and Akira could come back again. At the beginning of the match, Hao and Fukumin planned to attack their opponents simultaneously. Everyone was impressed with Hao and Fukumin-D's style. Even Kanta was amazed to see the match. Hao could overcome his opponent, while Fukumin-D was hit several times, overwhelming Hao. However, things turned around when Fukumin-D and Hao showed off their fantastic connection. They left their opponents helpless. Then Hao invited Fukumin-D to end the match with his signature move. Everyone was happy. Even Kanta subconsciously enjoyed the match and cheered along with everyone else. In the end, Hao challenged Fukumin-D to a one-on-one match. With confidence, Fukumin-D accepted the challenge. From the match, Kanta felt touched. He was amazed by Daichi's courage and toughness. After seeing the match, Kanta also wanted to change and was determined to take responsibility for Okada's pregnancy. The girl is delighted because Kanta finally accepts her. Now, Tsuruta and Akira are employed by Chikara's mother at the BBT Club as the communications team. They will work in the support department for the wrestlers until they find jobs that suit them. On the other hand, Hao is having a press conference because he got a big offer from another club to become a wrestler there. Hao stated that he would choose after his match with Fukumendi. If he wins, he will leave the BBT club, but if he loses, he will stay at BBT. Hao did this to leave BBT in a good position, and then Fukumendi would become a new star in BBT. Unfortunately, the principal did not authorize the match. The principal is very worried about Daichi's identity being revealed, and his opponent is Hao, who is challenging to beat. Most likely, Daichi will lose and Hao will unmask Fukumendi. However, Mrs. Maida will not let that happen. She threatens to expose the principal's past if he doesn't allow Daichi to compete against Hao. Mrs. Maida wants to expose the fact that the principal used to be a masked wrestler. At Mudo's house, Masao suddenly comes to hide from the police. Masao decides to hide in Mudo's house, not even letting Mudo or Makoto out of the house. Masao threatens to kill them if they report his whereabouts to the police. Daichi is worried about Mudo again because Mudo cannot be contacted and does not go to school anymore. Okada and Kanta tell Daichi that they have made up and are waiting for the birth of their child. Okada also asks Daichi to come to the birth of their child. Daichi promised to accompany them when their child was born. Now, Daichi continues to train before his match with Hao. Chikara demands Daichi to work hard in training. Daichi has to climb a very long flight of stairs in just 10 seconds to improve his stamina. Not only that, Daichi also had to compete one-on-one to train his reflexes and vision. He was also asked to compete against Takada. At first, Daichi underestimated Takada because Takada was paralyzed, but it turned out that Daichi couldn't take Takada down and kept getting hit. Everyone was shocked that Daichi managed to knock Takada out in the end. The next day, bad news hit Daichi. News of the death of a female student who committed suicide was brought up again and entered the newspaper. Daichi was linked as a suspect in the student's death. The student was none other than Hashimoto. Parents immediately scolded Daichi at school because they couldn't accept a murderous teacher teaching their children. The students started to find out about this and talked about Daichi. When Okada hears about this, she tries to defend Daichi by saying that Daichi is not a wrong person and there is no way he could have killed the girl. However, from the news, Daichi gets suspended by the principal for a week. When Hao sees the news, he remembers his past as Sayama, who once rejected Hashimoto's love. Okada and Kanda plan to go to Hashimoto's house. They both want to explain to Hashimoto's father that Daichi is not bad, but he sends them away. Okada and Kanta keep going and stay in front of his house until they are allowed in. After hours of waiting, they are finally allowed in. Hashimoto's father didn't want to talk about his daughter because it was in the past, and there was no way anyone could bring Hashimoto back. However, Okada insists on telling him that Daichi is not a bad person but a very good person. Okada's life has changed since Daichi came along. Finally, Hashimoto's father agreed to meet Daichi and told him he wanted to meet somewhere the next day. This news made Daichi very grateful because it allowed him to apologize in person. The next day, Daichi went straight to see Hashimoto's father. Kanta also wants to follow him to make sure the meeting happens. At first, Kanta forbids Okada from going because her pregnancy is getting bigger, but Okada insists because she wants to ensure herself. Unfortunately, on the way, Okada is hit by a bicycle and has to be rushed to the hospital. Okada asks Kanta not to tell Daichi, but Kanta calls Daichi and tells him about Okada's condition. Daichi is very confused because, on the one hand, he has an appointment with Hashimoto's father, which he is looking forward to. But on the other hand, he has to keep his promise to Okada to be by her side during childbirth. Ultimately, Daichi decides to go to the hospital with Okada instead of seeing Hashimoto's father. Finally, Okada goes into childbirth safely. Here we see Hashimoto's father disappointed with Daichi again. He leaves a letter for the servant to give to Daichi. When Daichi arrived at the meeting place, no one was there. Daichi receives the letter containing Hashimoto's father's disappointment. At school, Yamada, a former student and friend of Hashimoto's, goes to Principal Baba and tells him the truth. Yamada admits that she caused Hashimoto's death. She recounts everything from Hashimoto's rejection of love to the betrayal and bullying Hashimoto received that led her to commit suicide. Yamada also feels guilty for Dachi because she has been bearing everything alone without denying it despite being accused of being a murderer. Meanwhile, Tsuruda and Akira come to Muto's house because there is no news for Muto. Muto argues that he is busy because his grandfather is sick. However, behind the door, Masao points a knife at Muto to prevent his from telling the truth. As the days goes on, Masao becomes increasingly inconsiderate, beating Muto and even handcuffing Mikoto and Muto's hands as he leaves the house. In this condition, Mrs. Maida wanted to cancel the match between Hao and Dachi, but Hao refused. The match would determine his future. Hao wanted to meet and talk alone with Dachi. Hao told him about his past and that Hao was Sayama, a student who attended the same school as Dachi. Hao admitted that he was to blame for Hashimoto's death because he rejected Hashimoto's love and didn't accept Hashimoto's handshake. However, Daichi feels that he deserves the blame. They both fight over who is at fault and decide to prove it in their next match. The next day, Daichi went to school despite his suspension. Daichi submits his resignation because he feels unfit to be a teacher and prefers to fight Hao. The principal recounts that Yamada came to him and told him everything. The principal began to realize that the students needed a teacher who could help them change for the better, and Daichi was one such teacher who managed to make his students change. The principal was very proud of Daichi. To prepare for the match, Daichi continued to train hard. Chikara had Daichi lift and flip a car as a stamina exercise, but Daichi thought there was no way he could move the truck. Then they mocked and told Daichi to give up against Hao. Their words made Daichi angry, and he tried to return the car. Meanwhile, Hao also trained hard, hitting the wall bars until they broke. Their hard training paid off. Daichi managed to turn the car over while Hao managed to break the wall bars. However, Daichi is still sad because Muto remains unreachable, and there is a possibility that Muto will not be present in the fight against Hao. Tsuruda and Akira try hard to get Muto to watch the match. Meanwhile, Masao has decided to escape to the Philippines, but Muto won't let him. Muto handcuffs his own hands with Masao and tells Mikoto to call the police. Despite getting hit hard by Masao, who tried to remove the handcuffs, Muto still didn't care even if he had to die, as long as the police could catch his brother. In the end, Muto hugged Masao, who was carrying a knife, until his stomach was stabbed. Muto did this so that he could hug his brother even for the last time before he died. Daichi was preparing for the match when he got a call and information that Muto was critical in the hospital, and the police had secured Masao. Upon learning this, Daichi wanted to leave the match immediately, but Mikoto came and delivered Muto's message that Daichi must keep fighting and win for Muto's sake. The message makes Daichi's spirit even more burning to battle for victory. Elsewhere, Baba goes to Hashimoto's father to tell him the truth. As it turns out, Hashimoto's father never held a grudge against Daichi. After his daughter's death, he found a diary that Hashimoto had written, from which he knew who made his daughter commit suicide. The principal also invites Hashimoto's father to watch Daichi fight, so that he knows how great Daichi's courage and toughness are. Finally, the fight begins. Daichi and Hao's spirits are high, and they attack each other fiercely. Hao's strength and experience almost made Daichi lose due to Hao's relentless attacks. However, when he saw Akira and Tsuruda coming to encourage him, and remembered Muto lying in the hospital, Daichi got up again with great effort. Daichi didn't want any more regrets like he had before. In the end, Daichi won with his last move attack. Everyone was very happy, and Muto's surgery was also successful. Daichi was crowned the new historic winner of Fukumen-D. After the match, Daichi met with Hashimoto's father. The man was grateful that Daichi had supported his daughter. Now, Daichi is back teaching at school. All the students also returned to school as usual, including Muto, who has recovered, although Akira and Tsuruda are not there. In front of the class, Daichi expressed words of wisdom from the experiences he had gone through that moved all the students to tears. Hao finally moved to an overseas club, and the BBT club only had one legendary wrestler, Fukumen-D. At the end of the story, a new wrestler appeared with a red mask, signaling a new generation ready to shine. Then the film is over.